All right, live from Arkham, live from Carcosa, Lovecraft eZine Talk Show. Today is October the 11th, 2015, and no guest today. Deliberately, we're doing this once a month or so, and next week it'll be Wayne June. But for today, we're going to talk about Halloween and autumn books and whatever comes up. Might even talk about Pete Rawlitt's book. So, you know. So anyway, how you guys doing?
Okay.
Really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a few giveaways, and so does Pete.
Oh yeah, we should talk about the giveaways. I'm giving away a print by David LaRocca. I mentioned that on the Lovecraft eZine page. So that's my giveaway, or David's giveaway, I should say. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, the first book, again, this is part of my let's clear out the shelves to make more room for more books. There's a series of anthologies from Ministry of Whimsy Press. Jeff Vandermeer is the editor. It's called Leviathan. This is Leviathan 2, and it's the paperback version. There's stories by Rhys Hughes and other people, including Stephen Chapman, Richard Calder. That's book 1. Book 2.
And let me chime in here. If you like truly weird fiction, the Leviathan series is really wonderful.
And I've heard that Vandermeer guy really knows what he's doing.
Yeah, that Vandermeer guy is a pretty decent, editor.
Yeah.
All right. This next book, I think the cover here is spectacular.
Yeah.
It's called Beyond Each Blue Horizon. The author is Andrew Hook. This came out in 2005. It was Crow's Wing Books from England. The author's Andrew Hook. It's signed by the author, and I find this fiction very hard to characterize. Just sort of crossing genres. A satirical vein runs through it. Anyway, that's the other book. It's a hardcover. It's really a nice book.
That is a cool cover. Pete, you got something too?
Yeah, so I got I was at a really cheap used bookstore. Don't ask me where it is. I'm not going to tell you. They sell books by weight, and I found a copy of Jeff Thomas's Dead Stock.
Cool.
So we'll give that away. I have an extra copy, and they also sold me Colin Wilson's Space Vampires, which, despite having most of the Lovecraftian elements cut out for the movie it was made into, called Life Force, is a Lovecraftian novel.
Yeah, and it's a good one too, in my opinion.
So there you go.
It reuses some terminology in a different way.
Yes.
Ubothafla means something totally different.
I'm also, or not me, Dennis from Fedogan and Bremer is giving away a copy of the new Awaiting Strange Gods, edited by Daryl Schweitzer. So, got quite a few giveaways today, so I'll split that up between people watching live and the people who either watch later in the week or listen later in the week. So this is the 11th. If you listen to this or watch the show before the 17th, let's say next Saturday, I'll do the drawing then. I know what I was going to say. Kevin Wilson, he's a longtime viewer of the show. He's got a ton of books to give away, and that's really nice of him. And he just sent me the list right before the show, and I think we've got enough prizes for today, but he's got some good ones on his list, so I just wanted to shout out to Kevin and say thank you.
Cool.
I did not I guess I never put the two together that they made a movie from Space Vampire.
Yeah. Tobey Hooper's Life Force.
Starring Patrick Stewart.
Yes.
Really?
He used to be typecast as communist officials because he played Lenin in a TV series called Fall of Eagles.
Really?
He plays like the Prime Minister, the Premier of Poland or something.
Wow.
Yeah,
And then Star Trek changed everything.
Well, he was also in Excalibur, wasn't he?
I don't
He was
remember.
in the series I, Claudius.
Yeah, I think it was Sir Janus and I, Claudius.
Yeah, but every British actor was in I, Claudius.
But this is for his. He was Lenin. He was he definitely was the Premier of Poland in the movie that Albert Finney made about Pope John Paul II. It was Premier Gromyka in that. That's why. And he also was. It's a different politician from the Democratic perspective, and he was He was Clement Attlee in a production of. I think it was A Gathering Storm with Richard Burton as Winston Churchill. But I remember seeing him in an interview saying he was for some reason typecast as left-wing politicians.
He was in Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Was he really?
He played King
I
Richard.
believe you. I don't know if that's true.
But that was after he hit it big in Star Trek.
See, I'm really pissed because him and Ian McKellen have been doing Waiting for Godot now. They did it in New York. They did it in London. And do you think that anybody would have had the brains to, like, record this and put it out on DVD for us idiots who couldn't get to New York or we couldn't get to London? And even if we could, we wouldn't have been able to afford tickets.
I'm sure if
I mean, you know, two of our greatest actors doing one of Beckett's greatest works, and what in the 21st century, and we're not even recording it for historical purposes.
If they did record it, they wouldn't put it out till they stopped performing.
Well, they've been done. They did the run in New York. They did the run in New York, in London. Word has it they're not going to revisit it. Put the thing out if somebody recorded it.
I guess that's not how they roll.
Well, that's true of a lot of theatrical productions.
But come on,
Right.
I want to see this. I want to see this bad.
So, well, and you know, Ian McKellen is. Did that Sherlock Holmes movie start yet, where he plays Holmes?
It was. I haven't seen it, but it's been out.
Yeah, I read
It's
the
out,
book.
and the reviews are all raves.
Oh, good. I want to see that. I'll wait.
Yeah, I've been dying to see that since it was announced.
Yeah. Well, the book was very good.
Did you know that Ian McKellen is a registered minister?
No.
Well,
He performed them. He officiated over the marriage of Patrick Stewart.
Oh, really?
that's neat.
See, the things you learn on this show, people.
Yeah.
All right, so Halloween. I don't know what books you guys have to recommend, but I've got a few. There'll always be more out there. But first one I'd like to hold up is this October Dreams 2 that was given to me by Mr. Matthew Carpenter. And it's really excellent. And I was pleasantly surprised to find a few writers in here that I knew. Especially enjoyed S.P. Muskowski's story in here, Death and Disbursement. Mr. Dark's Carnival by Glenn Hirschberg. I don't know, Glenn Hirschberg. S.P.'s story was really great. It's just a really good book. I think Pete's got another one to hold up. Got the first one.
The first edition, the first version, Halloween Tales. October Dreams. Sorry. These came out from Cemetery Dance Press, and this one has stories in it by Ramsey Campbell, Peter Strahl, Kelly Lyman, F. Paul Wilson, Richard Lehman, Caitlin Kiernan. In fact, that's
Oh, Richard Lehman's got a short story in there, huh?
I think so. Yeah. Ray Bradbury, John Shirley, Alan Clark.
Well, October Dreams 2 is really, really good. I'm sure that one is too. It's definitely a couple of books to get you in the Halloween mood.
Yep.
Before I kind of go over my list, do you guys have a favorite novel or anthology to read this time of year? Anything that
Yeah,
comes to mind, at least?
it's just one there's only one.
Only
Yeah.
one novel. It should be obvious.
This way comes.
Night in the Lonesome October?
Now,
For me, it's A Night in Lonesome October. And number 2 by like that much is Something This Way Wicked Comes.
Yeah.
But I just think on every level that A Lonesome Night in October is it's just so wonderful. It's so readable and rereadable.
it is. I will give you that. But
Yeah, Danielle's reading it for the first time right now because I mentioned to her that, and she likes it. I mentioned to her it would be good for her 9th grade English class.
Mm.
So what book are you going to say, Pete?
Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Okay.
Yeah. Which, how can anybody fault that book?
Yeah, it's an absolutely fabulous novel.
Yeah.
And they did a great job with the movie.
Yes.
I loved that movie.
Yeah.
My goodness.
There was a time period when they were doing Ray Bradbury theater and that film, and there was the toss up between the adaptions of Ray Bradbury stuff that I love is either between Something That Wicked This Way Comes or The Electric Grandmother.
Mm.
And it's very hard to find The Electric Grandmother.
Yeah, but think about it. I mean, at one point, Ray Bradbury was what Stephen King is.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, he was Ray.
He was our premier storyteller for a long time.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
and
he was like, and it didn't matter what he did. They were all home runs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a whole shelf of Ray Bradbury books right here. It's got this big collection. Can't beat him. Martian Chronicles, one of my favorites. Matt and Salome and Rick, you guys have a favorite novel for this time of year? Or anthology?
Well, Pete already mentioned mine, which is Something Wicked This Way Comes, but he also probably would like The Halloween Tree.
Right.
Yep. That's a good book.
Yeah.
I'll just go with Rogers and Stilazny.
Mm.
Yeah, I got the, this is the new one.
Oh.
It's great.
I love that line, you know, the air smells like smoke. And it just makes me think when I was a little boy, we were living out in the boonies near Columbus, Ohio. It's true.
Yeah. No, the same thing, and I have that memory. There's that I can't remember what story it is, but they did film it, but it's about the dog that disappears for a couple days and the kid's sickly. When the dog comes back and he smells of the fall and winter and the approaching of winter. He drags October into the room with him. Just
That rings a bell, but I can't.
What's that?
I can't think of what that is either.
Yeah.
It rings a bell.
It doesn't ring a bell to me, but that's a great device.
Yeah.
It is.
And of course, the idea is that the dog's been dead, and he had to come back.
Mm.
Makes me think a bit of Neil Gaiman and also Robert McCammon's Boy's Life.
Yeah.
For some reason, one of the greatest books ever written.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a Halloween book, but a horror / mystery / one of the best books about 12-year-old boy.
Oh, but he's just such a great writer anyway. Yeah. Think about it. Mystery Walk. I mean, but yeah, you're right. Boy's Life is wonderful.
Salome, do you have one?
I'm going to say Brian Faulkner's The Throne of Bones.
Oh.
Do you know this book?
I have not read that one myself.
It's
what is
really
that?
cool. It seems to be a book of short stories, but they're all interwoven with each other, and so it's about ghouls, and it's really weirdly creepy. But
Ghouls are great. Joe loves ghouls.
yeah, you would love it. The writing is gorgeous, but it's kind of,
What's it called?
The Throne of Bones.
Oh, Brian McNaughton. Yeah, I know
Brian
it.
McNaughton.
Oh, I know that one. I thought you said Faulkner for some reason.
I did. Sorry.
Okay,
Oh, yeah,
I'm sorry. I did.
I've read that too.
I can remember once at Bob Price's Brian McNaughton reading part of one of those tales that he hadn't finished yet. That's a stunning collection, and anyone who likes fantastic literature needs that book.
Was that a Fedogan and Bremer?
No, what the
No.
hell was that?
I thought it was actually.
Let me look. Damn.
While we're looking that up, it's
Yeah.
the story about the dog that comes back is called The Emissary.
And who was it? Bradbury?
By Ray Bradbury.
Oh, okay. I remember that now. Yeah. That's why it sounded so familiar, Bradbury. All right, while Joe's looking that up, I'll start with my list. Of course, I covered October Dreams too, and we talked about this, and we talked about it last week as well. This is one of my favorite books, The Man in the Picture by Susan Hill. I don't know if you guys have read it, but it's a really, really creepy novella or small novel, and just I don't know. I don't want to give anything away about the book, but I'll read the back. When the former student of an old Cambridge don visits him in his college rooms, the long-held mystery of an ancient Venetian painting is exposed. Sat around the fire, drinking whiskey, huddling from the chill of the winter night, the Don reveals the picture's hidden secrets, malevolent power, and an inescapable force, and the consequences for those who become entrapped. So, Susan Hill, of course, wrote The Woman in Black, which was a recent movie. Joe, what'd you find out?
Terminal Fright.
Terminal Fright.
Yep. 1997.
Well,
Oh, that's it.
yep.
This is the first edition. Signed, of course. One of the few books.
Awesome.
I even have my sales receipt from the Necronomicon in '97 when I bought it. I don't know why. It's funny. I normally, even when I'm standing there, I don't have books signed. I don't even keep my books. Legati's on 4 different shelves. Cisco's in 3 different places. But this one's signed, and I got the sales receipt. There's some stunning artwork in here. This is still available as a trade paperback, but I don't know from who.
Borgo Press.
Blood Press. Is that it?
Yeah. This is as good a collection that's come out in the last 20 years. I should think just about every critic would have this near the top of their list.
Yeah.
Or certainly on their list of top 10, top 20 collections.
So I mentioned The Woman in Black. Very good book as well, very creepy. Of course, this is a book of aptly titled The October Country by Ray Bradbury. It's short stories, not a novel for anyone who hasn't read it. Really, really great this time of year. Pete mentioned this book, also on my short little list here. And then this kind of weird. Richard Lehman was a different kind of writer. He wrote some sleazy stuff, and you know, you read Lehman, you know that's what you're getting.
Yeah.
So that being said, there is another book not called A Night in the Lonesome October. It's called Night in the Lonesome October, and it's not great literature by any means, but I really enjoyed it. It's about this college kid who takes a walk one night in October, and the weird things that happen to him after that. So it's an enjoyable read. So that's what I got. What do you got?
I
Yeah,
got
Joe?
something outside the box.
Yeah.
This is for poetry fans. It's called Autumn Sonata by George Trackle, and it's autumnal poetry.
Okay.
He was a German poet. He was one of the first exponents of German Expressionism, and for poetry fans, quintessential volume of literature, especially if you're looking for autumnal in all the variant themes, which would include, you know, the coming of winter and aging and you know, as whatnot. Great essential book.
Okay.
Here's another collection. This is from Dark Regions Press.
Oh yes. Haunted Halloween.
What's that?
Haunted Halloween. I'm just for those listening later.
Yeah, it's Paul Melnichek is he was one of their stable of authors, at least for a while. It's a nice little collection of Halloween-themed short stories. This one came out in 2010-ish. And, you know, there's that collection, was it from Miskatonic River Press called Haunted Halloween?
Yep.
Not Haunted Halloween, it was Horror for the Holidays.
Horror for the
Holidays.
Yeah. Good collection. A lot of people mistakenly think that's horror and Lovecraftian fiction for Christmas time, but it covers all the holidays actually.
All of them. It covers Boxing Day. It covers St. Valentine's Day. It covers the 4th of July. Mother's Day is in there. At least one Jewish holiday is in there. If St. Patrick's Day. If you can name a holiday, they're in there.
Didn't Paula Duran put out a Halloween anthology, Matt?
Maybe. I would think if anybody has edited a Halloween anthology, it would be Lisa Morton. And she must have a collection of Halloween stories, I would think. I mean, she is one of Halloween's biggest proponents, and I was under the impression, I don't know her, but I thought she was also a Halloween expert. I mean, I think she's done extensive research into everything Halloween, on you know, in all its various stripes.
You know, that makes me remember in this October Dreams too, and I'm assuming one also. A lot of the authors did like short little their favorite Halloween memories. Pretty cool. What were you gonna say, Matt?
Oh, their Cemetery Dance has several books they've put out over the years centered around Halloween. I didn't really collect them, but for example, there's the book Orangefield by Al Sarantonio. there's a book, I think it's called Johnny Halloween, Tales of the Dark Season by Norman Partridge.
Right.
They actually have another collection coming out pretty soon. I know Richard Lehman has a book, Once Upon a Halloween. Maybe I should have prepared for this show. I don't know.
No, that's fine. I'm not trying to do a comprehensive list from everybody. Just kind of favorites. Recommendations.
I don't know if there's one out there, but one of the things I've always wanted to do is an anthology of Halloween in a graveyard. It's got to be Halloween story, and it's got to be in a graveyard. I just think there's an awful lot of things we could do with that.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. There's a one of my favorite stories
You
is.
think there's one of those out there?
I don't know. I'm sorry, Pete. What were you gonna say?
Oh.
One of my favorite stories for Halloween stories is by is John Skip and Craig Spector, and I don't think it's ever been republished. It came out in Twilight Zone magazine. It's called Not with a Whimper, and essentially Halloween goes bad, and every year you have to board up your house and hide behind windows, because everything that could possibly come out and attack you does. Just a great little twisted story.
Since we're speaking of Halloween, I'm asking Scott Thomas if he wants to do the Halloween show this year on Halloween night. Now, I don't even know if he's available, but if he's not, that's a Saturday. If any of you want to do a live Halloween show on Saturday night, I'd be open to that, and I think the viewers would probably like it. So something we can think about.
If that's available, I'll do a live reading.
Oh, that would be sweet. That's a great idea, Pete.
And something that hasn't seen the light of day.
Yeah, you know what? We could each, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be our stuff, but our own stuff, but we could each do a reading of, say, a favorite passage from a Halloween
deal
story
me
that
in.
we like.
All right, deal me in.
All right. Well, that sounds great. We'll do it. That would be October 31st.
One other this is a neat kind of October memory for me.
Yeah.
I don't even think I was 5 years old. This was in Columbus, Ohio, and my dad was, I think he was still in law school. He took me and my two older brothers to a triple feature of Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman. Those old classic movies.
Yeah.
And I just remember it had a tremendous impact, and it still stays with me, especially seeing the original Bela Lugosi Dracula. I still have incredible fondness for those movies, and that's kind of just after that, a lot of TV stations started having their Saturday chiller theaters.
Yep.
Showing those classic movies and the 1950s monster movies, because this had to be like 1962 or 3.
This is how you started down this.
It is, because ever since then, it's like it was the heyday, They had creepy and eerie magazine.
Oh yeah.
Just perfect for a little boy, or a little girl, it doesn't matter. I just still remember, like, when I think of Halloween.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
When I think of Halloween, I think of these old classic monster movies, and it's streaming on Netflix. You know what I'm going to watch this Halloween? For Joe, I'm going to watch The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Yes, it is on Netflix. Yeah.
And much like Matt, we had 2 big theaters downtown, and one was Proctor's, which was the premier theater, and the other was the State. And I remember one Halloween, and it started at noontime, and it was all Universal monster movies. I don't remember what they played, but they were old black and whites. I'm sure one of them must have been Frankenstein. But the reason I don't remember the 3 films is they had Frankenstein walking around, and Dracula walked around, and the mummy walked up and down the aisles, and, somebody, I wish I could remember, I was a little kid, but one of the monsters had like this severed head, and and he would reach inside and just throw candy, little wrapped hard candies into the audience.
But here's what I don't understand, Joe. Didn't those movies come out in the 30s and 40s?
No.
So,
yeah.
I mean, you were a little kid way before that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, this was one of several incarnations where I was trying to become a child again.
It's not a show if I don't make fun of older
I
age.
know.
That actually led into, do you remember those Aurora monster model kits?
Oh, yeah, I still have most of them.
Got them all up on the shelf.
We went over to a cousin's house, and he had the one, this is when they had the guillotine.
Oh, the guillotine.
You had a model of guillotine, and you could actually, with thread, you could raise up the guillotine blade. If you dropped it on the model, the head would pop off into a basket.
I still have Dracula. I
So
still have Frankenstein. I still have the mummy.
I think I made those models each about 3 or 4 times. Then they'd fall apart. We'd have a fight. Someone would knock them over.
Oh, no. What the ones of mine that didn't survive that break my heart is the Bride of Frankenstein. I have no idea what happened to that one. I have no idea what happened to Godzilla. And I have no idea what happened to the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
That Hunchback is a challenging model.
Yeah, and the one that I adore, and I think Rick and I have talked about this in the past, is one of the Aurora kits was a vulture.
And a mad dog.
And a mad dog, yeah. And I don't even know that if I ever put together the mad dog. But I thought that vulture was the nuts. Man. Because I love vultures.
There were 2 kits that were called customizer kits.
Yeah.
First one just had all this extra stuff, like you got Cobra, an extra Cobra for the mummy, and
yeah, I actually had that.
You got 2. The weirdest one, there were 2 severed hands that looked like the beast was 5 fingers. They were crawling.
I never had that. Oh, and I still have the Phantom of the Opera, which is incredible. He's standing there like this, holding up the mask, and down below you have the little, like, stone wall with bars, and there's a guy in there holding onto the iron bars. Those were great. Those were wonderful.
What was interesting about the Phantom of the Opera one, they used the Lon Chaney Phantom with the Claude Rains mask.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Phantom of the Opera, I wanted to bring this up. I think our friend Mr. Rick Lay has some new fans. You notice that, Rick?
Yes, I know there's a Facebook group.
Yes, Dwayne on the eZine message board, the group, evidently created a Rick Lay, the works of Rick Lay, I think is what it is. So,
oh, cool.
Well, isn't that...
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I think it's awesome.
I discovered that this weekend. Now I've got to answer all these Facebook posts.
Oh, you're not supposed to. They're just discussing your work. I think. You don't need to answer.
I've been asked a few questions, so...
Never get involved, Rick. You don't gonna do the whole lemon limon thing.
Right, I know.
Yeah, and yeah. So,
So let me tell you that this one Halloween memory I have.
yes.
I actually have. Well, I have 2. I'll tell you the first one is.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me preface this for you, Pete.
Okay.
It was a dark and stormy Halloween, and I took the keys to my grandmother's car.
Nope.
And then you okay.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Nope. And I have to tell you an addendum to that story. So I still have the scar. It was my sister wanted to go for Halloween as a Rubik's Cube.
What?
Yeah, a Rubik's Cube. So I'm in the backyard with the X-Acto knife, cutting cardboard,
boy.
and the cardboard gives way, and I slice my finger right down the center,
no.
straight to the bone.
Ow.
Straight to the bone. And blood is just, squirting and pouring out. So I wrap it in paper towels, my whole hand in paper towels, and I'm running down the street because I know my doctor is only a block and a half away. This is, when you could go to your doctor, he was local.
Mm-hmm.
But meanwhile, I've left behind this pool of blood on the sidewalk, and there's this trail going down the street. And
But it was Halloween. Did anyone actually believe you were hurt?
well, my mother's freaking out because she can't find me. There's a pool of blood in the backyard, and then there's this trail of blood that goes down the street. Thankfully, the nurse at the doctor's office called her and let her know where I was. But yeah, that's
Mrs. Rawlick. Your son is at the doctor's. No, he didn't steal a car.
no, you didn't
He
steal the
walked
car.
Here.
But that's the one story. The other story is kind of creepier and really freaks me out still. It was
Hang on 1 second. I got to correct something or I'll forget. It was Ralph Grasso that started the Rick Lay group.
okay.
I said Dwayne. But go ahead.
So to get to my bus stop, I had to cross this ball field, big park. And, it was no big deal. You just crossed, I played on that park field all of my life. And one morning, like 3 days before Halloween, somebody, put out underneath the tree against the fence of one of the back fences this big stuffed life-size dummy, and they just sat it there, as a joke. We're all standing around at the bus stop laughing at it, and every day goes by and we're laughing at it, and then finally Halloween is over and it's still there. And like 2 days go by and it's still there. Well, it turns out that nobody amongst us teenagers had been brave enough to go up and actually look at it. And it was actually a live body.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No.
A formerly live body?
Yeah.
You mean it was a dead body?
It was a dead body. Somebody just died on the baseball field.
It was a zombie.
Because it happened to be right around Halloween, nobody noticed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's... Okay, so I know...
That's pretty
if you're
creepy.
tuning in for the first time, I know this is supposed to be a show about cosmic horror and Lovecraft and weird fiction and all that stuff. But you know what? If you're a fan of that stuff, you're a fan of general horror and Halloween and all this geek stuff. So that's kind of what we're talking about today. Although I did post a list of new Lovecraftian books yesterday. I'll cover those. Anyway, Salome. Let's make Salome talk. She's been quiet for the last 15 minutes.
Gosh, thanks.
Do you have a Halloween memory, or do you have any more Halloween books to recommend?
I spent all day trying to think about Halloween books and discussing with my husband what Halloween actually means to Americans. It's not the same. I think it's not the same in different cultures.
Yeah.
So I thought of a bunch of books, and he told me that none of them were Halloween-like because it wasn't what he thought of as Halloween. He recommended It, the Stephen King book.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
We'll allow it. Now, do they... This is a dumb question, I'm sure, but do they do trick-or-treat over there? Anything like that? Do they celebrate Halloween? You're in Spain right now, for those who don't know.
I'm in Spain. I have no idea what they do here. I haven't been here very long. But in England, which is where I've been living for the past 5 years, I also don't know. I didn't pay that much attention to what happened on Halloween. But I'll find out before Halloween.
Well, don't they also dress up on Guy Fawkes Night there?
I never saw anyone. Oh, no, when was that? I did see people dressing up, but I don't know what the occasion was. I don't think it was Guy Fawkes.
I know they burn Guy Fawkes in all these bonfires.
Yeah. Now, you're
Yes.
from the Midwest, USA, and then you moved to England and then Spain. Do I have that right?
Yeah. Yep. What kind of scary stories do I have?
I don't know. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. But...
Well, I've been trying to think of something since you started talking about it. I have various weird, scary stories, but I don't know how scary they will be to anyone else. I'm very easily scared. When I was 18, I was staying with my grandparents, and The Exorcist, which I had never seen, came on TV. A weird set of circumstances. I was very isolated, and I was terrified of my grandfather because I'd been told my whole life, you know, don't go near him.
Really?
He had a terrible temper.
Oh, okay.
So, and my cousin was there, who was just a little bit younger than me, and we watched The Exorcist. It was on TV, so it wasn't even the full version. And just in the circumstances, it completely freaked me out. And I couldn't sleep for 2 weeks. The only way I could sleep was to wait until my grandparents were asleep and go into their room and sleep on the floor. I was too scared to sleep in my own room, which was on this big, lonely highway with a big window. So I was right next to the window, right next to the highway. Everyone who drove by, I felt like, oh, everyone knows I'm in here. Someone's going to come and get me.
Yeah.
I don't know what that had to do with seeing The Exorcist, but just like it amped up the atmosphere of scary. So I spent quite a long time avoiding watching anything that might be remotely scary in case I would become insomniac again. It was quite terrible.
Now, my wife is this way. Are you still easily scared by movies and TVs?
I get scared, and I will say to my husband, okay, we have to stop watching this. It just reached my scary point. I can't watch any more of it. I used to love it. Before that, I would like watch them on purpose and get really scared, and then I'd be scared at night, but I'd get over it right away.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. So as I've tried to think of scary things today, I realized that I've barely read anything that was actually scary or watched anything actually scary for a long time.
Well, you've fallen in with the wrong crowd then.
Yeah, we got it.
Well, you can become desensitized to horror movies. You know, it's it's like watching Cabin in the Woods. You know, it's like, well, they're all in a cabin. They're all going to get killed.
I know, just like right now.
You know, the funny thing is, though, is I actually saw a Cabin in the Woods, and I actually liked it.
See?
Yeah, you know
We all liked it.
Yeah.
Well, the whole thing is, you know, there was a point a few minutes in where, or however many minutes in, you know, they were up in that gas station thing. And I was getting typically itchy. It's like, God damn.
Yeah, you're like, I've seen this movie.
I am
Which was the whole
another
point,
one of these goddamn, you know, and, you know, it's like, somebody looks over and kind of gives me that, you know, just give it a couple more minutes. And I went, all right, you know, and I liked it, you know, which is funny because normally I don't like that kind of stuff at all, but
Matt,
it did turn that stuff on its head.
Yeah, it's just coincidentally, you know, the Spirit Halloween store. I mostly don't buy things from there, but Sam, my son, wanted to go look through it, and I promised I'd do it for him today. So I actually have to go look at some Halloween stuff.
Well,
No.
you guys have
You
fun.
bum.
You're a good
All
dad.
right,
Thanks, man.
I'll watch the rest of the show later.
All right, buddy.
Yeah,
Thank you.
See
great,
ya.
man.
Now,
Take
Rick
care.
mentioned just now about becoming desensitized. You know, it's kind of interesting. While horror movies, and I'm not talking about movies like Saw, I mean, you know, Salem's Lot, for example, that type of horror movie. They don't scare me. I find them creepy and thrilling. You know, they scare my wife quite a bit. But on the flip side of that, I can't watch Criminal Minds, for example. My wife and my son are big fans of Criminal Minds, and I've tried to sit in and watch it with them. And you know, some of the violence, and this is obviously a TV show. You know, but some of the violence in that and similar shows, I guess. I'm just so empathic, I guess, that I can't. I put myself mentally in the shoes of the victim, and I can't take it. So I have to leave the room. It's a different kind of scary than horror, I think.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, but I always liked when horror is when violence is off screen.
Yeah.
You know, lead me up to the cliff, set it up for me, and then walk away. I'll jump off the cliff willingly, but don't push me over. I got an imagination.
Yeah.
I'm willing to use it if you'll
And I
let
don't
me.
think any movie does that better right now than Barbarian Sound Studio.
Oh man, you're right.
And the thing is, and Pete, you can attest to this. As a writer, so even as a screenwriter or as a director, I don't know exactly what pushes your buttons. So if I imply and I set things up, and this is here and that's there, and this looks like it's about to happen, you'll fill in the blanks. And
Right.
you are going to bring your baggage to those holes. You're going to scare yourself more than I can scare you.
Yep.
Well,
And Pete's right with Barbarian Sound Studio.
yeah, talk about
It's-
that for a minute.
You know, in Dario Argento's opera, where we were watching that woman watch the horror going on, that was amazing because it's, you know, until we have to deal with, you know, the results. In Barbarian Sound Studio, we don't ever see the movie. We just, and so you're constantly filling in blanks.
yes, you can use sound and you can use shadow. You ever see a movie called The Black Cat with Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is one of the most horrific concluding scenes. But you don't, you know, it's Lugosi says what he's going to do, and then you see it in shadow. If you were doing it now, they would show you blood all over the place.
Well,
What,
and you know,
you guys just mentioned Caligari. Look at Cesare. You see his shadow with the knife up on the wall.
Pete, what were you gonna say?
You can fill it. You don't need any gore. Your
There's
mind will.
Yeah, Pete. Go
yeah,
ahead.
there's a little film called Dr. Sardonicus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that.
The ending of that is just so horrific. Just so terrifying. Because he relapses, and the doctor's like, oh, I could probably cure that again, but he decides that he won't. He just decides that, you know, he'll let him die.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Well, it's actually the servant who does that.
Yeah,
It's the Oscar Omoka character.
right. But
Actually, that didn't scare me. I felt that was ironic, and he should, you know, when they had it in the theater, you got to vote on the ending.
oh, did you?
You got to vote.
Really?
You get to vote on whether Sardonicus. I don't think they ever filmed the other ending. I think it was all a fake out. Does Sidonigus get punished or does he get forgiven?
Of course, everybody probably votes for the punishment.
Right.
And it's not scary, but it claws at my inner, the morality and the empathy that sits in my brain, what little is left. That somebody could be so cruel, and then somebody could be so cruel back.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't seen the movie, but I know what you mean. Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
Most people kind of feel the guy deserved it.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. It was a William Castle film, and
right.
I think I saw him being interviewed about that, and they said, nobody ever voted to let him off.
I want to just let's see. I guess this website's called Reading Brightly, but he did 8 thrilling, chilling books for Halloween, and A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay is on the list. Paul's going to be on the show in January, so I know you've read it, Joe, but everybody else read it before then. So it's good that he made that list. It looks like a damn scary book. Stephen King liked it.
Yeah.
A Head Full of Ghosts? Yeah. Every single review has been a rave. And Tremblay's an incredible writer.
I told him, I said, I don't know who that King guy is, but he's vouching for you, so it must be good. So,
well, I'm sure it won't take long before we see a film of it.
Yeah.
Whether it'll be as powerful as the novel, we'll have to wait and see. Now, I did see the trailer for what's it called, Crimson Tide today.
Crimson
Guillermo del Toro film.
Crimson Peak.
Crimson Peak.
Oh, okay.
Guillermo del Toro's new movie.
That looks really good.
It does.
Yep.
It does.
From what I understand, the heroine is not a damsel in distress in this film.
That's good.
It looks like a classic Gothic story with a more believable heroine.
I want to mention, too, I mentioned it before on this show, but Nocturnes, collection of short stories by John Connolly, the author of the Charlie Parker series,
right,
is really good. There's some Lovecraftian stories in there. There's some weird fiction stories in there. Just really good horror short fiction. And he just came out with Night Music, which is basically Nocturnes 2. That was just like last week. I haven't even picked it up yet, but it's as good as Nocturnes, the first one. It's going to be damn good. So, if you haven't read Nocturnes, pick it up. And Night Music is the second one. So, Pete.
Yeah.
Can you explain what the lurking chronology is?
What's that?
Can you explain what the lurking chronology is?
No, I have no clue what that is.
You're very uninformed.
Really? Okay. So.
Got you on the screen there. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Who wrote that thing?
No idea.
So the lurking chronology. In order to do Reanimators and the Weird Company, I had to go through my collection of Lovecraftian fiction and sort of take notes on timelines and whatnot. And one of the big influences on me is this. One of my big references is Peter Cannon's the chronology out of time, in which Cannon went through all of Lovecraft's works and put them into a single timeline that you can look at and figure out when things happen. So in doing the research for the Weird Company and Reanimators, I did it for Lane Carter, August Derleth, Clark Ashton Smith, lots and lots of different people, and I have masses of 3x5 cards. Huge tracks of 3x5 cards. So I realized that in doing that process and in talking to Rick over the course of the years, that the Derelith timeline really needed to be done. One, because nobody had done it yet, but two, that it really, once you start to timeline the Derelith mythos, you really get to see the diversions where he is taken a different route and said, this is not Lovecraft's universe, this is mine, and it'll reference Lovecraft, but it's a different whole set of stories. And if you try to integrate, like I did when I was a kid, Derelith's stories with Lovecraft stories, you end up with contradictions and questions about who's Obadiah Marsh and who's Obed Marsh, and they're actually two separate people. And one is from Derelith and one is from Lovecraft. And what you figure out is that there are serious discrepancies between the two timelines. So I sat down and I said, there's even a role-playing game for the Derelith mythos now. Was it Trail of Cthulhu? So
that's Derelith? I didn't realize that.
I think that's right. It could be wrong. I could be wrong.
You're probably either wrong or right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one or the other.
There's a
One or the other.
Go ahead, Rick.
I think what Derelith was doing is he was getting on this tack. You always said The Outsider and Others by Lovecraft became a mythos tome.
Right.
And what he was doing, he was playing the Sherlock Holmes game in a sense, saying that Lovecraft really wrote fact as fiction.
Yep.
And so like Obed Marsh wasn't really Obed Marsh. It was based on a guy named Obadiah Marsh. Innsmouth didn't happen exactly chronologically when Lovecraft said it happened, and so forth. So that was what the divergence was supposed to represent.
Right, and there's a few other little hints here and there. The deep ones are there's more magic in Derelith's universe, and you don't just get you can be born a deep one. You have ancestry deep one in Derelith's universe, but you can also get turned into one by association.
Yeah. Fisherman of Falcon's Point.
Fisherman of Falcon Point. There's some sense of that also in something in the clay.
Innsmouth clay.
Innsmouth clay, and then something in the wood as well. So yeah, there's
brains really blow me away. The way you can remember this stuff, it's amazing.
Yeah, Rick is better at it than I am. He has detail.
I don't know. I remember the classic stuff, or I'll say, or not so much classic, but at least original Lovecraft circle.
Yeah. If one of my favorite things that I realized in doing this is that you read The Shuttered Room, or August Derleth's long story, The Shuttered Room. It's really just the Shadow over Innsmouth mashed up with the Dunwich Horror.
Yeah.
It's a woman who goes out and gets impregnated by a deep one, and she has a baby, and she and the baby are locked away. And then the family dies, and the person who inherits it is told never to open that door, never let whatever's in there out. And of course he does. How can you can't just say that. And the thing escapes, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Wet paint, do not touch.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the reason I did this was to really sit down and show people that you can't shove these two mythologies together. Because if you try, they don't work. And Derelith's mythology is just as valid as anything that anybody else has done since then, whether it's Brian Lumley or Ramsey Campbell or me. We're not all going to adhere to specific things, but Derelith did his own thing. Yes.
Now, if you want to read a good book on all of Derelith's work, The Derelith Mythos by John D. Hale. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I did meet him in person at a pulp convention. but this is the book. And it goes through all the mythos stories that Derlitz wrote and how they are, as you said, this is done with horror plus Shadow over Innsmouth.
Right.
He does an excellent job of pointing it out. And, like, one thing I didn't know, and I'm forgetting now the title of the story. The one was the family, Witch's Hollow.
Witch's Hollow, yes.
Witch's Hollow is really the color out of space.
Yes, yes.
I did not catch that.
Right.
And I think, well, what it ends up tying, it ties in Haster in that story, and I think that's why Richard Tierney, when he wrote Seed of the Star God, had connected the color out of space to Haster, the Derlitz version of Haster.
Right.
You don't want to upset Joe here, because that is not the true Haster.
Hey,
Don't poke the bear. Don't poke the bear, people.
We don't want the King in Yellow to get angry.
No.
I don't get angry. It's like that's it's
even.
just
No,
I
you
don't-
even. Yeah.
I don't like that kind of stuff, and I don't read that kind of stuff. I want what everybody knows my preferences are.
There's,
And if you're gonna do something different, and you're gonna bring something on the holy ground that's against what I like, well, if you're Caitlin Kiernan or Laird Barron or somebody like that, you probably can pull it off. But your run-of-the-mill Johnny probably won't pull it off to my satisfaction.
yeah.
But they're entitled to go play what they want to play.
One of actually, I think one of the best stories in the Derlith mythos is one that's only vaguely connected. It's the Ancestor, which is very late in his career.
But the problem with that is that Derlitz read a summary of a novel by Lovecraft. It was Leonard Klein's The Dark Chamber.
Right.
And he sort of was an outline for a story Lovecraft never wrote. It was a summary of a novel Lovecraft read.
Right.
That story, that's the one that if Joshi wants to tear Derlitz apart, he goes after, because it's already written much better in a novel called The Dark Chamber.
Right. And I was going to mention that, but it's also rewritten again by Patty Chayefsky as Altered States.
Right.
Right, but it influences Altered States.
Yeah.
As opposed to The Ancestor is sort of like a summary
Of the novel.
of the it's like that remake of Psycho they came out. It's frame by frame copy.
Yep.
That's the problem. Even though Derlitz did it unintentionally, it's not influenced by, it's a copy of.
Right.
Well, Pete's book, for those watching, listening, is The Lurking Chronology. Pete approached me about this a few months back, and I thought it was a great idea. And it's available in print and Kindle. Very nice cover by Steve Santiago. And
He does fabulous work.
yes, he does.
Yep, he does.
He does. And so if you want it digital, you want a print copy, just go to Amazon and pick it up. And while I'm on the subject of Amazon, anything you buy, if you buy it on Amazon, I sure appreciate it when people go through my portals. So for people who have been doing that, you're supporting the magazine, and I do appreciate it. If you don't know where the portal is, just go to the Lovecraft eZine website. Up at the top, there's a bunch of links at the top of any page, and just click on Amazon portal, and it'll tell you what to do. It's really, really simple. It doesn't cost you any more money. So thanks to everyone who does that.
If this works out, if we like how this goes, maybe we'll do another one in a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole bunch of Lynn Carter stuff that could be timelined. I don't want to do anybody who's still living because they could really mess things up.
Oh,
They mess things up for you when they.
Yeah.
How? With their lawyers?
No, with changing the timeline.
They could rewrite a story that totally messes you up.
You know, I've read Willem. I love Willem, but he likes to rewrite his stories,
Yes.
and that creates problems. What
Well,
are you showing us, Joe?
just like I did a Doc
You read
Savage.
that title?
Composition book, yeah.
No, under it.
No.
Hold it still.
It says Traffic with Autumn.
Okay.
So currently, well, I got about 50 pages in here that's got to be transcribed. Currently, Traffic with Autumn is 50K. And between Des Lewis and Pete Rawlick and Rick Lay, whoever those three people are, I got this idea that I use Dr. Archer a lot. And he's in a lot of my King in Yellow stuff. So I wanted to look at Dr. Archer. So piece of this and a piece of that and a chunk of that and an idea about this, and I'm not calling it a novel. I'm calling it an experimental narrative. But
I'm just thinking of the poor person who has to transcribe that and type it up.
no, actually, there was one conscious decision right at the beginning, is that I would pass up my usual Pollock artwork on the page and try to do something so that when somebody has to actually, typeset it or whatever, even though I'm still using the page for a canvas, it'll be easier this time. A lot easier.
Now, do you use soft returns in the composition book like you do on the computer?
Yeah, wait, do you do two double space or single space in the composition book?
Yeah.
Scratch. Let me see.
Good question.
Look. That's what my pages look like. Why? Why don't your pages look like that, Pete?
They used to.
That's how it looked like in high school.
Yeah.
Pete's like Mozart. It comes out perfect the first time. First draft.
I'm scratching at light speed. I don't have time to stay on the lines.
You ain't got time to bleed.
That's it. And when you're halfway through a word and you've spelled it wrong because you're trying to remember the 15 words after that, I just scratch it out and keep going. And then go back and try and figure out what it was. But
yeah.
God forbid if somebody was doing a Pulver timeline, because this will eradicate my previous King in Yellow Works timeline, if there was one.
You mentioned our friend W.H. Pugmire a few minutes ago. Now, I did a list of newer Lovecraftian books, a post yesterday, and I didn't even know about this, so I'd like to mention it. Monstrous Aftermath, Stories in the Lovecraft Condition. I didn't know Willem had a new book out, so.
Yep.
You're out there, you're a W.H. Pugmire fan? Sorry, Rick, what?
I was going to say, I bought that at Necronomicon.
Oh, okay. And I also did not mention Cthulhu Attacks by Sean Hode, which is actually, he was nice enough to dedicate the book to me, so that was nice.
What?
Yeah, I fooled him into thinking I'm a nice guy.
Do you know how many books I have to read now?
I didn't say you had to read it.
As much as I have to read, too.
Yeah.
I know exactly how many books you have to read, because I'm reading the same ones.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you to read it. I'm just telling the audience it's out there.
No, I'm saying.
I
If
thought
you like
I
that
bought everything in
Cthulhu stuff,
Necronomicon. Let's say I bought everything in Necronomicon, and then you post a list, and I'm going, oh my God, Vince finally came out with that book. I got to read that.
my list yesterday.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
Carter and Lovecraft, Jonathan L. Howard, supposedly making a big splash. Delta Green, Extraordinary Renditions, edited by Shane Ivey.
Yeah, I think that was the one they just did the Kickstarter for, right?
Yeah, but Kickstarter's for the game stuff, I believe.
Okay.
Extraordinary Renditions is out already for Kindle, and I don't know if it's coming out for print. Knowing those guys, probably is. The Dulwich Horror is a forward.
Yeah. So I've
I
had
guess
that book for 2 years.
David Hamblin. The Dulwich Horror and others?
Yeah.
I thought that was new.
It is new as a print edition, but it's been out as a Kindle book for a long time.
Okay, gotcha. A Mythos Grimly just came out.
No, not yet.
Well, okay, it's about to then.
Well,
ebook
some
is out,
of
right?
us are waiting to get our Kickstarter copies. We'll put it
Okay,
that way.
it's out on. Let me clarify. It's out on Kindle. It's not out in print yet. You can get it on Kindle and Amazon. If you go to the local museum, my latest post is this list. You can click on it. What were you going to say, Joe? Were you saying something, Joe? I'm sorry.
Oh, I think it comes out on Kindle next week.
No, it's out on Kindle now.
Yeah, no, it's out on the 13th. You can pre-order.
Oh, it's a pre-order. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. But anyway.
Yeah.
Featuring stories by, and first name on the list is Joseph S. Pulver Sr., and then there's a Mandy Rawlick after that.
But it's Joseph S. Pulver Sr. and Tom Lynch.
Oh, is it? Okay. Didn't know that. Oh,
Yeah,
wait, Peter and Mandy Rawlick. I'm sorry. Damn it.
Okay.
See, so Pete and I faked people out. We brought in contributors.
There you go.
Yeah. No, and I think this is when I sold this story, the editor came back to me and said, "Do you really want to do this?" And I said, "Yeah, I wouldn't have written it if I hadn't." It's a pretty audacious story.
Did you ruin a fairy tale?
No, it does something that only Hannes Bach has tried to do before.
Okay.
So
I
that is
probably
about
like the story that you're talking about, but I don't get the analogy. Okay.
I'm sorry, for those who do not know, a Mythos Grimly is a mashup of fairy tales and Lovecraftian mythos stories. So,
Right.
interesting.
And
Jeremy asked me to contribute to that, but I was just too swamped at the time.
I mean, Richard Gavin's in there. I'm trying to think who else is in there.
Richard Gavin, Michael Griffin, Brett J. Talley, Sylvia Moreno Garcia, Tracy McBride, Robert M. Price, lots of other people. Don Claude Smith, he's a damn good writer.
I know Tom and I used an obscure Chinese fairy tale as what we riffed off of.
Yep. I actually have.
Pardon me?
What?
Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, I was going to say, and of course, so it's an obscure Chinese fairy tale set in Carcosa.
Wow.
What were you going to say, Pete?
We took my story is one of my Randolph Carter Warlock of Yadith stories, and he sits down and he's in a conclave where a big decision is going to be made, and he tells the story of Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood? No, I'm sorry, the Three Bears. And unfortunately, it's completely misinterpreted. The lesson he was trying to tell is completely misinterpreted, and everything goes to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, they should eat. Maybe they should eat golden box or something like that. Is what I.
Something like that, yes. So,
Well, if you ruin Goldilocks, just remember Lad ruined Rumpelstiltskin for all time for us.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. But fairy tales are fun to play with.
Yeah.
I mean, when you stop and look at, I mean, go through how many different volumes of Terry Windling and Ellen Datlow's Year's Best Fantasy and Horror, or some of those books that anthologies they co-edited together, and think of the vast number of fairy tales that have been toyed with, tinkered with, turned on their heads by everybody from Angela Slatter to you name it. It just, there's so much wonderful stuff there.
Did anybody ever read The Adventure of the Bogle Wolf by Anthony Boxer?
No.
No.
yeah, I read that a long time ago.
It's a
That's
Sherlock Holmes pastiche
Yeah.
where Holmes is telling the story of Robin Hood to a little girl, and suddenly he scientifically deduces what's really going on in that story. And it's that the grandmother was a werewolf who got killed, and ruins the story for all time for this little girl.
You gotta go, Pete. You're gonna miss the
Yeah, I
time
gotta
travel
go.
section.
Mandy's trying to feed me dinner, and my sugar's dropping. So.
No problem. Thanks, man.
Bye.
Real quick, the rest of this list we've got Apotheosis, Stories of Survival After the Rise of the Elder Gods, which reminds me of Cthulhu's Reign, Hale Schweitzer's anthology. Lovecraft mythos stories often climax at the moment of the fateful return of the Elder Gods, and the audience is left to ponder what might happen next. This anthology features stories about humanity under the reign of the Elder Gods and ancient terrors. And then next we've got Tales of Alhazred by Donald Tyson, which Rick will be reading and reviewing when he gets around to it for the Lovecraft eZine.
I will do that.
I knew that was way more your thing than mine, so.
Thank you for the free copy.
Oh, yeah. No problem.
Well, Tyson's really good. His what was the name of that book? Alhazred. That was, I thought, really wonderful.
Yes, and I don't mean to imply that at all. I just knew it was far more in line with what Rick likes than me, and I know he'll enjoy it.
Yeah, Tyson did a much better job than Lynn Carter was doing Alhazred's past.
Oh yeah, well Tyson takes it serious anyway. I mean,
he's the problem with Lynn Carter was he just became repetitious in all those episodes of Alhazred. They were the same story.
Well, as a writer, Carter phoned it in a lot of times. He was really passionate, but you know.
Or he got caught up in formulas. That was his problem.
Yeah.
Because what was interesting, some of the best stuff, you know, if I look at what I really liked that he did, was when he did a continuation by Howard or even Lovecraft, because he did a version of The Descendant. Those were pretty good stories. But he had, but I always looked at it, he had a good start, and he could come up with something pretty original to end it.
Then we have The Idolaters of Cthulhu, which is an anthology. The Trials of Obed Marsh. Again, this is all the latest post to Lovecraft eZine, which is a novel. And then Tesla and Malone, Lightning Skull, which is Vince's book. Available in print and Kindle. So if it looks like a very fun book. I haven't read it yet.
Now, the hero of that is the guy that Vince plays in the Call of Cthulhu game. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, I think so.
Dennis Malone. That's
Dennis Malone. Yep. Then The Atomic Sea by Jack Connor, which is the first of a series, I guess. So anyway, if you're you're looking for Lovecraftian books and not Halloween books, or you're looking for both, there's a list of Lovecraftian books for you. So, there's a viewer or a listener who wants us sometime to talk about why so many people, we don't have to do it today, but maybe think about it, why so many people have thought the Necronomicon was real. So, I guess for the same reason they thought Sherlock Holmes was real is the only thing that comes to my mind. Just a lot of people have read it. Sorry, what?
If you first read that in Weird Tales, you would think it was real because all these different writers were referring to it.
Right.
Yeah, and I remember Dean Koontz always referred to a book called poetry book called the Book of Counted Sorrows, and he said he felt bad years later because so many people would go ask their librarian they couldn't find this book. So.
Well, you didn't have the internet.
And the thing too is how many writers have used things that don't exist and put them in the middle of it, some grouping with things that do exist. So
Right.
when you're reading along and, I don't know, it says Altered States and A Clockwork Orange and Steppenwolf and whatever, and then there's, I don't know, whatever title, and then, Shaft and The Magus and whatnot. And you recognize that this whole list is real. You don't realize that one or two things in there aren't. So you just assume that it is real. And over a period of time, with so many people referencing something like the Necronomicon,
Right.
X number of people start to believe that that's a real book.
Yeah, good point.
Well, the other thing is we get these mischievous writers who invent fake stories by real-life writers. Like someone in Nightmare's Disciple said there was a story by Lynn Carter floating around somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to the internet trying to find this.
Bob, who is Lynn's literary executive and has always been, the literary executor of the estate, he's like, I never heard of this. How do you know about it? What do you know about it? Do you have a copy? And I said, no, I made it up. And it's like there's one section in there where they're talking about horror films. And a couple of scenes from a couple of movies are actually discussed. And Bob's like, I love horror films. I've never heard of these. I can't find out anything about them. What are they, like obscure European things or something? And I'm like, I made them up. It's like, so sometimes it just catches somebody's fancy, and
Takes on a life of its own.
takes on a life of its own.
Yeah.
In one of Ramsey Campbell's books, Creatures of the Pool, set in Liverpool, and he mentions two horror stories about Liverpool. And one is called Vampire of the Void. And I'm blanking out on who wrote it now. It was the guy who wrote the Sardonicus story, actually. Eric Frank Russell. That exists. But then he invents a story by I don't want to say obscure, but a British writer of the 30s who was a lot in Weird Tales, a woman named Gigi Pendarvis, which he totally makes up. And I went crazy trying to find that. And then I realized he made it up.
There was going to be an anthology of book reviews. And it was going to be fake reviews of books by living, predominantly weird fiction authors that these writers, who were real and still alive, had written, but had not published, or had published in such limited quantities that maybe 5 copies were published, or maybe 20 copies were published. And I can remember writing a review for a Cisco book that doesn't exist. And of course, that anthology never saw the light of day. But boy, that's just so much fun creating stuff like that. And I did send it to somebody as a joke, only I didn't, you know, say it was a joke. I just said, here's an attachment you might find interesting. And the only thing it's a long email I sent. And the only response I got is, oh my God, I can't find any reference to any copies of that. What was that, like a private printing or something? Was that like that Pluto's Orchard thing? Because Cisco did a zine back in the day. There was only one issue, and it was called Pluto's Orchard, which has some staggering stuff in it. So, sometimes people just latch on to things and think, yeah, that's real.
I forgot to mention that this just arrived in the mail. The Realm of Morning, Two Tales of Cosmic Horror by William Sloane, introduction by Stephen King. It has been so long since I've read these two stories that I barely remember anything about them other than they're fantastic. So, speaking of autumn, this is from his introduction. Stephen King. The reissue of these two remarkable novels is long overdue. I can think of no other novels exactly like these two, either in style or substance. My only regret is that William Sloane did not continue. These two novels are best read after dark, I think, possibly on an autumn night with a strong wind blowing the leaves outside. And these are cosmic horror novels packaged together. Two Tales of Cosmic Horror, The Realm of Morning. And I am really looking forward to reading this. So, So, have you guys read those two stories?
I have not.
I haven't.
The two stories are To Walk the Night and The Edge of Running Water. But they're supposed to be incredible weird fiction stories, and I just remember that I read them a long time ago, but I don't know what they're about. So, just finished the latest Charlie Parker mystery, so now I'm going to read this next.
That must have been fun.
To get back to what we were discussing before,
Mm-hmm.
have you ever found a book in a story which you thought was just like the Necronomicon, totally fictional, and then you discover it's real?
I don't know, maybe.
I'll give you one that was a hoot to discover.
Okay.
Derlitz and Kuttner made reference to some guy named Sinestre, and the book is Demonality. And that is a real book, and basically it's a Vatican sex manual about how demons have sex with humans.
Okay.
Just like everyone else.
Everything you wanted to know about demonic sex, but were afraid to ask.
Oh boy.
And it's a hoot to read.
I missed that one.
You're not going to believe some of the stuff that was claimed in it. And the weird thing in it is there's a section on dividing demons into elementals, and the different elements don't get along. And suddenly I'm reading this and I'm going, I don't know if this is true. It could just be a coincidence. Or Derlitz could have had another source. Is this where all that elemental stuff from Derlitz came from? A book on demonic sex?
It could have. I mean, Rick, you know how odd where ideas come from. They can come from,
Well, it may have come indirectly because one thing, if you look at like Locke, he sometimes throws in a real book in some of his stories.
Oh yeah, look at Psycho.
Yeah, but all those writers like Kuttner, or like the second generation of the Lovecraft Circle, Derlitz, Block, Kuttner, they were all reading Montague Summers, an authority on witchcraft, vampires, and werewolves.
Mm.
And he would mention real books on those subjects from medieval times or whatever. And they all borrowed from that. I later discovered that when I was reading, because I knew his book on werewolves had been used by Manly Wade Wellman and Carl Jacoby, so I started looking, what else did they borrow? And I'm seeing all this stuff that Block, Kuttner, and Derlitz make reference to.
Well,
that was like the reference book if you were a Weird Tales writer. Read Montague Summers.
One of the witchcraft demonology books that Lovecraft references, I came across in a used place in the early 70s, and it was, just on the bottom shelf of basically everything on in this bookcase is a quarter, and it's like, oh, I think I heard this book mentioned somewhere, so I bought it, and that just reinforced with me that, most of these things were real. And to go back to Psycho, there's that one little section where Block is talking about books that Norman has. And if I remember correctly, they're all real books with the exception of the Necronomicon.
Well, he doesn't have a Necronomicon in there.
I thought he listed the Necronomicon in there.
No. I think Bob made a joke that maybe there was a earlier draft with the Necronomicon in there, and then Block responded, no, he never did that.
Oh, okay. I just, somewhere, it's been so many decades since I read it. Just somewhere in my head, it's like I thought it was in that brief listing.
No, you're remembering a joke that Bob Price made.
Okay. But so much stuff goes in and out, right. And that's something I need to read again. It's been way too long.
Well, the interesting thing I always found about Psycho is that in the novel, it's sort of like when they made the movie, they reversed Anthony Perkins and Martin Balsam's role, because Norman Bates is not this young, thin guy.
No, he's not.
He looks like Martin Balsam. He's a middle-aged, bald guy.
He's on the pudgy side. Yeah, he is not. But
and the detective looks like Anthony Perkins, tall and thin.
Yeah.
Maybe not as young.
But let's just think about the Hollywood studio system at that point. You can't have your lead actor look like what Block describes Norman looking like. That won't play in Peoria.
Even though the
guys. And they'd already know he was a bad guy if he looked like that.
Yeah, I mean, even though Norman's a psycho, and you know it, he's still the lead actor. You can't have him. It's just the movie comes too soon for you to have some normal, plain, pudgy-looking guy be the star of the movie. Especially where you're going to kill Janet Leigh as quickly as you're going to kill her. That's just not going to fly.
Spoiler alert.
Well, everybody
knows.
I'm kidding.
I mean, I would not spoil anything that came out in the last couple of years for anybody.
I'm just kidding.
So we all know who gets murdered, and we all know who the murderer was, and we all know what.
And the other thing is, while we're talking about why people believe that the Necronomicon is real, we have the Simon Necronomicon. We have George Hay? Is he?
Yes.
We have any number of Necronomicons. The Simon is from when? Sometime in the 70s. Yeah. And least we forget that Simon was everywhere. I
Yes.
bought my copy of that, which is a paperback, off of a spinner rack in a supermarket, for crying out loud.
Oh, wow.
Did you
That
freak
was-
out when you saw it?
I went wacko, Rick.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe I was looking at it. I didn't even crack it. I grabbed it. I bought it. I have no idea what I was in the supermarket to buy, but I don't recall buying anything. I bought the copy. You know how sometimes you buy it so that somebody can't, like, take it away, take it out of your hand before you own it? I bought it. I paid for it. I had it in a bag. I went home. You know?
Did you read it aloud at the supermarket?
No, I didn't even look at it. It just said Necronomicon on the cover, and I bought it right on the spot. Because the spinner rack in the Safeway back then, you walk in, there were the carts. Immediately at the end of the cart, and the carts are here, the cash registers are here, and you have to walk in, and then the aisles start down on the far wall. So at the end of the carts is the spinner rack and the magazine rack, and then you would turn and you'd be in produce. And I never got past the spinner rack. It was right there as I was walking by, black cover, it says Necronomicon. And I went, huh? What? And I just grabbed it, looked at it for a second, and immediately went and bought it. I was probably in there to buy beer or something,
Speaking of Necronomicons, they showed the first episode of the Evil Dead TV series.
Oh, they did.
Comic-Con,
Oh,
not
okay.
on television yet.
Oh,
Got rave reviews from the people who saw it.
yeah. Well, it looks very entertaining in the trailer.
And that was somewhat influenced by that version of the Necronomicon, because it was supposed to be from Sumeria. The Necronomicon that they use in the Evil Dead movies is not the Necronomicon of Lovecraft. Not written by some Arab from the 8th century. It's like back to Sumeria, which is what Simon used. I think he actually used a real Sumerian spell book and just rewrote it.
Yeah. That's my recollection.
Rick, did you see the Doctor Who episode last night?
Yes. You want to discuss bootstrap paradox?
I do, and something on top of that. Now, you don't have to leave, anybody listening or watching, because we're not going to do spoilers, okay?
Okay.
Except a very minor spoiler to say that in last night's episode, Doctor Who explains to the camera what a bootstrap paradox is. And, it's a causal loop.
Mm-hmm.
And he uses the example of Beethoven and says that he loves Beethoven's music, so being a time traveler, he zips over to the 18th century to meet Beethoven and discovers that Beethoven does not exist. So luckily he's got Beethoven's sheet music with him, and make a long story short, he becomes Beethoven. So that's the bootstrap paradox.
That was all a made-up story.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
really
there is a Beethoven, no panic. But there is a Beethoven in the world of Doctor Who. So, but anyway, bootstrap paradox. That name comes from Robert Heinlein's time travel story by his bootstraps, which is a very good story. Anyway, I find the causal loop and time travel in general very fascinating. But he barely touches on, and he doesn't say the word, but the idea of Jinn, which is in the movie Somewhere in Time. There's a good example of Jinn. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's a very good movie. I'll try to avoid spoilers there as well. But in the movie Somewhere in Time, which is from a book called Bid Time Return by what's the name, Rick? Richard Matheson.
Okay.
All right. So in the movie, at the beginning of the movie, this young playwright by the name of Christopher Reeve, he's celebrating a play, if I remember right. Yeah, I mean, he's written the play. His actors are with him. Everybody's happy. And this old woman comes up to him, and she gives him this really nice pocket watch. And she says, "Come back to me." And he has no idea what she's talking about. So years pass. And it's not really a spoiler to say that Christopher Reeve goes back in time to 1912 from 1980, and he meets a woman by the name of Elise McKenna and finds out that she was the old woman. He falls in love with her before he travels back in time. That's why he travels back in time. And when he travels back in time, he's saved the pocket watch this entire time, and he gives her the pocket watch. So, without any more even mild spoilers, where did the pocket watch come from? So, then that's what we call Gem. It's an object or even an idea that really doesn't have a beginning. So,
Can I give you my theory about causal loops?
that's why I brought this all up.
All right. I'm going to use. I'm going to spoil something, but it's something that's well known.
All
So I
right.
have to use an example.
Sure.
Terminator.
Mhm.
In Terminator, we're in the future. The supercomputer has taken over the world. It's been overthrown by this guy named John Connor. The computer sends a robot back in time to kill John Connor's mother before Connor is born. Connor sends one of his followers back to stop the robot. And not only does the robot get stopped, but the guy, before he gets killed, the agent from Connor, ends up being John Connor's father.
Right.
Impregnates the mother. Okay. I think that what you're seeing in causal loops are timelines readjusting themselves based on people interfering. And I would say, to use that as an example, this is what I think originally happened. The computer sent this assassin back. No, before I have to go before that. What originally happened was, we know that John Connor was only raised by his mother, by a single mom.
Right.
In the original timeline, she probably gets pregnant by somebody from her own time. For whatever reason, she doesn't marry the guy. He's an absentee father. Maybe he got killed. Who knows? She raises the kid, and then all this apocalyptic stuff happens, and he becomes a leader. The computer decides to fool around with time, sends the robot back. Connor ends up sending his follower, his agent, back. And what happens is, because of all this interference, Sarah Connor, John Connor's mother, doesn't meet the guy who originally impregnated her.
Right.
She meets this guy from the future. And because he dies, she is still impregnated with a kid. The biology of the kid is going to be different, but everything else is going to be the same. He's going to be raised alone by her. So then that becomes a loop, but it's replacing something that originally happened.
Yeah, I thought you might say parallel worlds and go with.
No, I think it's, there's a way it happened. I could do it with Doctor Who, but that would ruin it.
Yeah.
I figured out how that episode must have gone down, like I would say, originally, and what then you're seeing is a loop.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, I'm sorry. go finish what you're saying.
I was going to say it gets a little more complicated as there were some shows, like I remember one of Star Trek Voyager, where they realized they were in a loop, and then they broke it.
Yeah.
That gets a little more complicated to figure out how did it happen originally.
Well, I guess I'll give you a couple of theories, but my first question is, even if what you're saying is true, does that, when the timeline is tampered with, does that really solve the problem? Because the follower has now become the father, and even though originally it may have been different, it's still a loop without beginning, without end.
Yeah, well, it changes. Well, it then becomes a loop that, but it did have a beginning. It's just that when it got replaced due to the tampering, it became a loop.
Right.
So you can say, where did, the question would be, how did John Connor exist before the future? Well, he existed, but he had a different biological father.
Well, when you're talking about changes in the past, there's always the two main ways you can go. That the past cannot be changed. Well, a couple of ways you can go. The past cannot be changed, so whatever has happened, and anything you do is only going to serve to further that end. Then there's, whenever the change happens, you now have an alternate timeline. You have an alternate universe. So either one, or we know the universe began with a Big Bang, but what was before that? Maybe it's the same type of concept, that time has no meaning, and that's how you can think of causal loops.
You also get things in science fiction where there were like agencies were trying to preserve timelines, some group of time travelers. We're probably going to see that. We're going to see that on The Flash with Rick Hunter, or on Legends of Tomorrow with Rick Hunter.
Yeah, Paul Anderson's Time Patrol, for example.
Yeah, was probably the first example of that in fiction.
Yeah.
And I once read a series called Time Wars. I think a writer named Simon Hawke wrote it, and it was all the histories were actually fictional stories. Like the guys would be interfering with Ivanhoe or the Three Musketeers or whatever.
Oh, an anthology?
No, it was a series.
Oh, because okay, series. There's edited by Paul Anderson, as a matter of fact.
Is the author of that Simon Hawke?
No, it's edited by Paul Anderson.
Oh, or is this called Time? This was a paperback series which had called Time. It was something totally different.
Okay.
And what would sometimes happen is that it's like when they were interfering with Ivanhoe, Richard the Lionhearted got killed. And they said, well, we can't do that, so we got to send one of our guys from the future to take over Richard the Lionhearted's life. Because we have at least what's supposed to have happened in historical records. So, that's what they do. They replace the guy who's been wiped from prematurely from history.
Right. There's also a story like that called Behold the Man by Michael Moorcock.
Yes.
Yeah.
I read that, and my mother saw me reading that, and she said, "Oh, it's wonderful! You're reading this. You're reading this wonderful religious novel about Jesus Christ." And I said, "If she knew what was in this book,
yeah,
she would flip out." I think I was at the scene was when the time traveler meets Mary. And I'm not going to say what goes on there. We already had his interesting boarding school experience, which I'm not going to go into either.
It's an interesting book. I also found very depressing, and I'm sure very true to life, the description of Jerusalem 2,000 years ago, and the way people had to live.
Well, that book will always have a place in my heart because that was my first sex novel.
Oh.
Your first blasphemous book.
Yeah, I mean the first where there was some detailed description of what.
Wait a minute. How old were you, Rick?
Do
you remember?
I was 13.
Okay.
I knew that something was going on under the covers, but I didn't know all the mechanics of it.
Mm-hmm.
I had
I
a
hear you.
general idea, and I got everything right here.
My first one was The Arm by Clark Howard. It's like, whoa, is that what all that is? I like that.
And
I
when
don't
did
know how
you
the
I was
conversation
12.
when did you read that?
I was 12 years old. My mother had a friend who was and they were both avid readers, and they predominantly read romance. And this woman would come over for coffee every once in a while, and she'd normally bring a grocery bag full of paperbacks she'd read. Sometimes she'd bring books, and they'd be in like a cardboard box. And most often she'd come in and right inside the door was the sofa. She'd set the bag or the books down, and then they'd go off into the dining room and have coffee. And I came down the stairs one time, and right there was a box filled with books, and on top was this book called The Arm by Clark Howard. And there is a semi-naked stripper, and down the alley between her legs is a bunch of guys crouched down, throwing dice. And, you know, the woman's breast was profiled. She had a pasty on, and she had a little short thing, but it form fit so you could see the shape of her buttocks.
How
And, you know, there were her legs, and she had long red hair, and it was like, I didn't know what the hell the book was, but that was, at that point, I hadn't seen a woman with less clothes than that. So I just picked that up and went right back upstairs, and it kind of found a way under my bed. And I would read it at night. And it's your typical hard-boiled novel from the period, but it's like, wow, sex. This is okay.
Well, Rick, I have one more thing to say about the Doctor Who episode. It's not a spoiler either, really. You know, he goes back to 1980.
Yeah.
And I'm watching and I'm thinking, why did the writers choose that particular year? And then I'm thinking about causal loops and the bootstrap paradox, and then I got to thinking about Jin. And I remembered that pocket watch from Somewhere in Time, which is a 1980 movie, and I'm wondering if the writers are just referencing that movie, kind of winking out there to anyone who is a fan of that movie.
That might be. I'm curious as why they chose.
That's a possibility. We all love to steal from each other.
Yeah.
You know,
And
while you're talking about time traveling, and I'm talking about theft. I mean, Robert Bloch, A Toy for Juliet, is my favorite time travel story. It's also my favorite Jack the Ripper story. And I've certainly stole from that. How many times I can't count.
in fact, correct. He's in one of the. You didn't write it, but in the anthology you edited, Casilda's Song is in one of those stories about Juliet from Bloch's.
Yeah.
Well, I know.
Ross Lockhart edited the Jack the Ripper book anthology, and I wrote a sequel to A Toy from Juliet. Hopefully the Robert Bloch estate won't have me assassinated. I just think it's Bloch, who absolutely walks on water. It bothers me greatly that his name isn't mentioned a lot more than it is. That, you know, I mean, at a certain point, there were two writers in the universe to me, and that was Ray Bradbury and Robert Bloch. I'm not that there weren't other writers that I didn't admire and love, but those two guys were it. You know,
I don't think you have to worry about the Block estate, but Hall and Ellison may assassinate you. Because he wrote a sequel to Toy for Julia.
I'm way too little a fish for Harlan to want to fry, and you know, I focus on Block. Yeah, I love what Harlan did after Block with it, but you know, to me, it's still Block. He owns it. It's his. Um, but and well, that's like you were talking about, and I really like Somewhere in Time. But my favorite time travel movie, again, is Jack the Ripper. It's Time After Time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Again, you know, Robert Bloch in the '60s, before I discovered that he wrote Lovecraft stories, it was Jack the Ripper and serial killers he was writing about. That he was my guy, you know. So I was just a Jack the Ripper wacko for years. So Time After Time came out, I was like, I also think it's a great movie, but you know, theme-wise, man,
yeah, it is good.
That's a movie I actually went and saw more than once in the theater, which I never did. I mean, money was way too dear to see a film more than once, even if you adored it. But that was a film I went and saw. I actually saw twice in the theater.
Well, I'll tell you, I've learned my lesson when it comes to Doctor Who this season, Rick. I'm gonna watch it every 2 weeks. I'm not gonna watch it every week.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to approach it.
Yeah, because I was watching it last week, you know, the next day, and it hit to be continued. I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!"
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite a cliffhanger too.
You know, one thing I got faked out by. You didn't see in the first episode what the monster was going to look like.
Right.
And you've been seeing these trailers. And if you remember in the conference room in that submarine, there's a painting on the wall of a sea serpent.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I noticed that.
And if you look at in the trailer for the entire series, there's some scene with a sea serpent type creature. And I kept expecting that to be what the monster looked like. And it wasn't. So I'm wondering, maybe that's going to be in the Viking story because you have the Midgard serpent in Viking legends.
Yeah.
But I was expecting this giant snake-like creature to pop up, and then it was this totally different appearance.
Well, for everybody watching live, let's give away the print by David LaRocca and Awaiting Strange Gods, edited by Daryl Schweitzer. If you want that, just put print, I guess, art print in the subject of the email, or Awaiting Strange Gods in the subject of the email, and send an email to Lovecraft eZine prizes @gmail.com. Lovecraft eZine prizes @gmail.com. And I'm sorry, Miss Salome saying she had to go. And I will do that drawing tomorrow. As far as the other prizes from Matt, let's see, they were Leviathan 2 and a book called Beyond Each Blue Horizon. Third prize is Dead Stock that Pete was going to give away. So actually, why don't we do the print, Awaiting Strange Gods, and Dead Stock for the live viewers? We'll do Leviathan 2 and Beyond Each Blue Horizon for the people who watch for the remainder of the week. Let's say through Friday night, part of Saturday. If you're listening to this or watch this, you can still get in on that contest. And you get in on it the same way. Just send an email and put what you want to win in there. So next week we got Wayne June. And let's see. Oh, speaking of Jeffrey Thomas, the week after that, Jeffrey Thomas and Christopher Taylor discuss the upcoming Punktown graphic novel.
Very cool.
Yeah. So that should be good. All right. Well, thanks guys. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see everybody next week.